you feel like you're injured. And so I'm going to give you an understanding that you're not injured, but it's actually how you're behaving. And we always hear the word behavior and we think we're behaving good or behaving badly. But behavior is a use of the body. And understanding it as an athlete is really important. The videos that your dad sent me were actually quite amazing. You're a natural athlete, and I saw that in the videos. It was, it was hard to discern the number on your back. You're 65.
In the black, yeah.
Yeah. And so, what was interesting is that I couldn't first tell who it was until I was able to zoom in a little bit. I saw a really good athletic ability. The downside was I saw a huge amount of stiffness underlying all of this. So it's just like somehow you've been given, a Ferrari and you've never been taught how to maintenance it. And so now the Ferrari's starting to break down and you're like, wow, I've been given a bad car. And it's really not true. You've been given a vehicle and you're not maintaining it, and I can see it. And there's a lot of things you're kind of taking for granted. You have really good lateral stability, meaning you can go side to side. You're actually pretty good at your age for staying up on your toes. The problem is you have a tendency to fall over. You've learned how to use it to your advantage to just keep going and use the momentum of going forward. And it was great that you included the surfing, because the surfing is what gave away that you try to muscle not falling forward. It's not because you know where your center is. And I'm going to show you how I can see all that. So this is where it begins. So when I show you, I'm not picking on you. I'm just showing you all the things that I identify. And you'll see by the end it's going to come down to just a few things. Whoops, wrong button. Okay. So this is you. And these scissors are going to work. Oh, it's going to work even better. Okay, so when I look at you, one of the things I first almost immediately identify is how you're standing. And the way you're standing is very unique because it's showing how you suddenly got an athletic body but you didn't work there. Because when we look at you from the waist up, I see someone that's a natural athlete. You developed and there's great muscular balance. When I see what happens from your hips and below, it's not the case. I see you outperformed your legs before they were ready. And the reason why I know that is you're doing something called valgum. You're going into bull-leggedness. Do you see that? Here's your femur, here's your tibia, here's your femur, here's your tibia. Hence explaining why it's so tender on the medial aspect of this, because there's a great fascial pull across here because you're so tight. Does that make sense? Ask questions at any moment if you have any questions. One of the hallmark signs of an athlete is their stance and their feet, because it's telling you about their foundation. When I look at your feet, your stance is way too wide for as athletic as you are. You can tell there's some surfing in there. Your feet are too wide, and your feet are not parallel. This foot turns out to this angle of degree, but this one turns out to a greater extreme. Do you see that? So the feet aren't going in the same directions. And in terms of, have you taken physics yet in high school? In terms of force, potential, and direction, you're vectoring in two different directions. And it's not even a symmetrical two. I'd be more apt to say it's okay if your feet were going the same direction, but you got feet doing this. So you got one that's going out more extreme and one that's going out less extreme. But ideally I want the feet going in the same direction. Does that make sense? The stance is too wide, which tells me you're not using the balance coming from your hips, you're using the balance from your shoulders, neck, and ironically your mouth. So this is where I have to introduce a concept. This is called the pubic ramus. Ramus means ring. This is a mandibular ramus. What's interesting about these two rami, when they're in plural you say rami, is that this rami is where we do all our load-bearing work. But this rami, even though it's smaller, is stronger. And to prove it to you, if I asked you to bite this in half, you'd be like, okay. But if I put it between your knees and I'm like, bite it in half, or break it in half, you'd be like, what are you talking about? It's because this, by itself, can exert about easily. 11 to 2,000 pounds of pressure per square inch. The hips in an athlete like Usain Bolt who run the 200 meters at the Olympics, maybe 950 pounds on an athlete that trained. So yours are clearly not that strong. You're starting to take the work that should be happening in your hips and you're bringing it up to your mouth. That means you're starting to use your upper body too much. And I saw that when you were playing soccer, and I especially saw it when you were surfing. You get a little too over your toes, and you tend to feel like you're falling into it. You're able to cut to correct it, but you're not holding true balance, if that makes sense. So, we've established the feet aren't going in the same direction. The feet are not parallel. Okay, so here and here is the actual hip socket. And this is what we worry about when we say hips width. When we look at your hip socket and we draw a line straight down, that's where your foot should be. And we draw, this one almost makes it, it's still a little too lateral. So your stance is too wide. Everyone thinks a wide stance makes you more agile. Like, if I was going to take a huge load and it was coming at me, opening up my stance makes sense. But I have to do two things. My feet have to be parallel and I have to be sticking out of my butt. But in life in general, the closer our feet are together, not touching, the better balance will be. A man named Bruce Lee, which you may have heard of, changed up old traditional stances because he said they took too long to respond out of. They're strong, I can create a strong kick, but it takes too long. He brought the stance really close together and he created really fast moves that we now see in martial arts. When I see a stance this wide and someone as athletic as you are, you're wasting time and energy, and especially in sports like you've chosen, a quarter second is a lot of time wasted. This is, do you know who Muhammad Ali is? The advantage he had over everyone else he boxed is that he could respond in 1/32. What it took most people to do, that took 1/16 of a second. So that means he would get there in half the time, in other words. But that made him a better boxer, and that's why he did so well. When I see a stance this wide and this turned out, you're losing 1/32 of time. And so that's going to make you slower. So you're going to have to make it up somewhere else. You're going to have to make it in seeing the game, and pre-responding, predicting, instead of being present. Does that make sense? So we got to get this stance really cleaned up. Otherwise, as you're finding out, the medial side of your knees are going to get sore. And what's starting to get really sore is this. It's called the tibialis posterior, because you're starting to run from your feet instead of run from your butt. So it's interesting what we eat in terms of, are you a meat eater? We don't even eat the things that are around the ankle of a cow, which has huge feet, because there's nothing there. We boil it and make soup out of it. What we eat is around the butt, it's around the hips, it's around the abdomen, it's around the shoulders. That's the part where we have a lot of meat. We don't have a lot of stuff around the feet. So somehow you've taken the work that should be happening in your butt, which is a very strong muscle, and you put it down to this muscle, the tibialis posterior. So it's really important that we bring the feet back together and now get your feet parallel. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. So now we're going to do the most interesting thing. We're going to divide you in half. So midway between your stance, we're going to draw a line. That's great. This thing is the greatest thing in the world. And what should happen is it should go through your crotch, which it does. It should go through your navel, which we're slightly off. It should go in between your chest, where we're definitely off. And it should go through your nose. And we see everything's happening over your left leg. You see that? So you're shifting it. You're creating a dominance. I'm going heavy on my left to keep my right leg available to be dexterous. So you're becoming very right leg dominant. Back when I played soccer, if I saw someone stood like this, I'm going to park myself right on top of this left leg as a defensive player. Whenever I could, and I was a dirty defensive player, I would have swept this leg. Then I got into martial arts and I found out why. This becomes the leg that you stabilize on, so I would sweep your knee. Because once that's gone, none of these extremities work. But if I do it to this side, you have the ability to adapt, because it's called close chained, you're not standing on top of it, it's up in the air. So if I kick it, it just moves out of the way. Kick this one, it's the end of the game. It's a career-ending injury. So I would attack the knee. This makes the fight a lot shorter. But we don't want to identify that. We don't want to project that as one of the first things that we see. So your weight's heavy on the left side. Do you see that? Now as we draw horizontal lines, I see that this arch is flattening a lot. So not only have you shifted to left, but you collapse the arch. So that's going to change the biomechanics of this foot, how this knee works, and you're putting all your weight on top of this leg. So you're getting an idea of what's going on? So we look at the next set of lines. The knees are on two different levels. So the problem with that is we call this patella baja, which means low, or patella aha. We always have to figure out which one's doing it. This one's actually contracted, so this quad muscle's on, and that's why this kneecap seems higher and this one seems lower. So what you're really beginning to do is stabilize, put all the weight on that, and stabilize with this leg. This leg's ready to go, it's ready to kick, it's ready to do, and this one's become like an anchor stone. So this is your slow leg. So this tells me if you got a cut, you're going to go fast this way, because you're going to just step out. When the ball goes this way, you're going to be slower because you have to do a crossover step, because your body's not going to be out to do that. So it's going to slow you down, and now we've lost a quarter second versus a 32 seconds. So we have to figure out how to balance that out. Then we go to your hips. Let me just get you straight on. We can see your hips have shifted to the right and they're unleveled. And then your shoulders have countered in the opposite direction. You see that? So we got a twist between your hips to your shoulders. So we have a muscular imbalance developing. And so that's creating a lot of problems. Shoulders are unleveled, this one's lower, and that's what gives the appearance of this arm being lower. But more importantly, I call these the front of the hands, and I call these the knuckles. If you're standing up straight, I should see the front of your hands. When I look at you, I see one front of the hand, and I see one knuckle. So this tells me this pec is tight. You got you have a slight head lean that direction. And when I look at the shape of your shoulders, see how this one goes down, slight notch, then down, big notch, then down. So you're using your two arms very differently. You're using this as a counterbalance. This is more dexterous. You become very right side dominant. Athletes, we don't want to see dominance because it's too easy to figure out. When you look at Olympic athletes, and it doesn't matter what sport, in general, the athlete that's better at what they do looks very muscularly symmetrical. So swimmers, when they look muscularly symmetrical, we go, oh, great athlete. Boxers, fencers, it doesn't matter what sport, if they're symmetrical, we know they're great athletes.
In general, also symmetry means less pain. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's almost always true. Because what we have is an asymmetry of the muscles. You overuse your medial line, as you can tell by the way your legs are taped up, and you're not utilizing your lateral line of the muscles on your legs. Kinesiotaping has been a godsend, but it's also been a nightmare. Kinesiotaping is designed to create what's called muscular feedback. It's not for support. But it shouldn't be something you wear all the time, because what happens is it extinguishes the usability of it. It's like when someone touches you for the first time, you're like, oh, that felt pretty good. But if they do it all day, all the time, you won't even know that they're doing it. And that's why kinesiotaping, you don't want to use it all the time. Okay, so this is you straight on. Let's look at your sense organs, your eyes, ears, nose, mouth, and heart. Heart's lifted, that's good. People don't realize that's a sense organ. And that's one of the things that identified you as a really good athlete. Your heart was up. I hate seeing people slouch. But the problem here is just like when we look at someone's chest development, ab development, your mouth is developing down. You have a nice frown going on. But it's telling me you use your mouth to stabilize and you're not using your hips. Does that make sense? And part of it's having braces. Your eyes aren't level and nor are your ears. So that means information, you're muscling it. You're not seeing it and then responding to it. You're kind of holding your head, holding an adaptation. So you have compensation on compensation on compensation on compensation until the information gathering parts of our body aren't getting the right information. And then you adapt to it by doing another adaptation. Kind of makes sense?
Yeah.
Any questions?
No.
Questions tell me you're getting information in your head. So, last thing, let's look at your silhouette. This is very straight. This is curved. We got a big space here. We have a small space here. So the two arms are hanging different. You have a different carrying angle of this arm versus this arm. You see the difference?
Yeah.
Did you ever hurt any of your wrists or elbows? How about your shoulders?
Not really.
Okay. Okay, we're gonna watch you turn to the right. Your dad caught this. Okay, this is interesting because now we have to talk about athleticism. Probably one of the biggest thing in athleticism is I call movement precision. It's doing what you think you're doing without having to look. Let's watch you turn to the right, which is actually to the left. Your eyes have to drop. So you're looking to see if your feet move. Then you pulled that leg back. Okay, so you turned it out. This is a really interesting set of movements. You turn it out, and you did something that's a big no-no for athletes. You pivoted on your heel. Never pivot on your heel. That's, if we see NFL football players, because they're now all $1 million athletes, pivot on their heel, we pull them off the field and we put them through rehab. You just pivoted off your heel. Okay, you're going to pivot out, and then you got to take your foot from once you pivot it, you got to turn it out. So that's movement number 2, or actually 3, because looking down was your first movement. You line up your foot, it's slightly turned in, internally rotated, so this is movement number 4, turning this leg. Your eyes are still looking down. Then you realize your feet aren't in the same plane, so we have to do a correction for that. 4, or is that 5? 4. So what was interesting, you stopped your foot here, and now you're pulling it back yet again. And then you straighten it out again, and then you seek satisfaction. So it took you 6 movements. Okay, so this is a dilemma. So we have to talk about reflex versus reaction steps. Reflex-wise, you have great reflexes. Turn to your right, or in this case, turn to your left. You did it immediately. So there's no problem with reflex. The problem is, it took you 6 steps to get there. It was turn out, pull back, turn this foot, pull it back further, correct both feet, then look up. 6 steps. So if something's like rolling at us, like you're standing here and I'm standing here, and the best thing you can do is turn to your left to get out of the way, you're going to do it in 6 steps, and I'm going to do it in 2. So you're going to go, God, I'm just not really good at this. Or when you get older in your life, you're going to think, like, I'm aging. And it's really not true. It's that you have too many steps. So you have to work on precision of your movements now. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you're turned to the side now. We're going to look at you from the side. This is your initial side posture. So the alignment should be lateral malleoli, knee, hip, shoulder, and ear. And they should be on this line. Did you get that?
Sorry.
So as we do that to you, I see that you're tipped forward here, so you get a nice line, you get a broken line here, then take it back to your hip, to your shoulder, and to your ear, so you're not standing up straight. And once again, I pointed out to you, you have a tendency to fall forward. This is where it's coming from. The tightness that you created sets you up to fall forward, and you've learned how to use it athletically. But for someone as fit as you are, you have incredible physique. I would like to see you standing up straight over the top of your feet, because athletic balance and posture go hand in hand. So the better your posture is, the better your athletic balance, and vice versa. Your athletic balance is based on posture. I see a tip forward. My martial arts background, I'm going to pull you. I'm going to sweep your left leg, and then I'm going to pull you forward, and then that's the end of the game. I'm not going to even bother to push you backwards. I'm going to pull you forward. Okay? So turning. Oh, we have to talk about why you went to the left. It's not that you don't understand what right or left is. You're being looked at, so you're being put under stress. The fact that you turn to the left is what I call situational disorganization. So you're under stress, you were told to go to the right, and your brain said turn to the left because you're under stress. So that means we got to work a lot on your neurology. And it's not because you're stupid, don't get that confused. It's that your system's under so much stress from compensating that it's now getting confused. So right now it's saying that you are on the threshold of a major injury. That unless you learn the proper things, you will get injured. And not for the reasons you think. It's because you know what to do athletically to execute, but your body may not be able to carry it out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, turning, and I said face the door because it was going to be too big a correction to tell you to turn to the right again. There it is again. You have to look down to turn your feet. And I know you're trying to stay in one place, but now you're about to do the worst thing an athlete could ever do. You're going to do a crossover. And a crossover is this. What it should be to turn to my left should be two movements. It should be 1, I turn my foot out to the degree of angle I want to turn out. 2, I follow with my foot. What you did instead is what I call a crossover. You're going to take this foot and cross it into the other. Do you snow ski at all? Have you? Water ski?
Well, I have.
Yeah.
But
This is like bad in snow skiing, okay? Because we don't want our tips across. So what we do is we take the outside ski and we follow it with the other one. And as an athlete, this is always a bad idea. This is a blown out ankle or knee. So you're about to do what I call a crossover. And you're looking at yourself doing it. So that's what you did. So you torque your knee. You see it?
Yeah.
And then your foot can't go any further, so you stop your foot short on this side. You create a turnout, and then you have your wide stance back again. And even that took about 4 to 6 steps. Okay? Then you finally look back up again, and now we're going to look at your symmetry from behind. We're going to explain why you have what is called the medial shin splint right now. Okay, we look at your feet. They're clearly not pointing forward. They're turned out, and this one's turned out more. But now we have to look at the Achilles tendon. This Achilles tendon overall is not too bad. It's on the straighter side, but it's into what's called valgum. So this is called your calcaneus or your heel bone. Your heel bone is no longer underneath your foot. It's starting to go medial on both of your feet. And that is because these calf muscles, especially the medial calf muscle, is overly tight. So you're starting to get this going on. I'm exaggerating, but I want you to see. You're falling off the top of your heel bone. And biomechanically, that's going to slow you down a huge amount. This also tells me you stand on your heels in your free time. I don't want you resting on your heels as much as you're doing, because it's going to cause this valgum in the Achilles tendon, and it's not creating a straight force of work. So you can see how fast I can pull this out of the, this hole I created in my fingers going straight up. But imagine if I have to bend it and pull it out. It's not going to happen as well. So you've created a bend in there. We have a muscular difference. The medial calf is overly tight. The lateral one's weak. So we have a collapsing here, which leads to this genu valgum, or bowing of the knees inward. So you're getting this. So if your feet were straight, so I'm exaggerating, but if your feet go straight, you're going to be knock-kneed. You set yourself in the knock-kneed. And that is why the medial group's getting sore. We have great butt development, and that's really important. All great athletes have great butts. That's why when you go to an athletic event, minus maybe swimming, people have really round butts, because the butt is the motor. It's not the calves. It's the butt. In fact, in cycling, it's also a surprise, because when you go to bike racing, you think people are going to have really big calves, and they don't. They have huge, gigantic quads, and they have huge, gigantic butt, and they have almost no calf muscle. Because they don't want to carry that, spinning it around and around and around, and it doesn't really provide anything that the butt couldn't do better. What you're starting to do is overdevelop your calves and underdevelop your butt, and you've got great genetics and you have great lines. Okay, here's what's interesting. If I draw that same invisible line through your body, it looks like you're leaning to the right. So remember when you were standing front, it seemed like you were to the left, but when I turn you around, it seems like you're leaning to the right. Well, the fact is you're still heavy on your left foot, but the reason why it looks that way is because you have a certain amount of rotation in your body. So if I could mount the camera up here, we could look down your body and there'd be a rotation, and you're rotating to the right. So again, we're loading the knees completely differently because of the way you're rotating. Does that make sense? When we look at, we have pretty good rhomboid development. I'm actually quite happy, but when I look at the silhouette of your arms, we have two very different silhouettes. The shoulders are mounted different and your head has a lean to the, it's more clear that it's to the right. Any questions? So I would like your chest to be much more upright because like I said, these are from the hands and these are knuckles. These are the back of the hands and those are the palms of the hands I see. So what's starting to happen is your arms are creeping around front because you're getting a slouch on. You got great back development and that's probably from surfing, but I would like even more until your hands leveled out and your palms were facing your body and we only saw the back of your hands. I shouldn't see your thumbs disappearing on the front side of your body. Okay? Questions?
No.
Try to come up with some. It'll get you more involved. You'll see. Okay, here it is again. At least on this time you didn't do a turn
Thanks.
in. Turn-ins are bad. But this you can see how much you're torquing out your knees because your feet are turned out too wide. You have enough flexibility to do this. The eyes again come down. Well, now we see something else that's interesting. Your hands become involved in what should be only a hip rotation. The hands are compensating. That's what that is. Okay. Still 6 movements to turn. Should be 2. Okay. This one's going to be a little off because you're staring at the cabinet. But it's a little bit better stance, but once again, when the two halves of body tell the different stories because there's rotation built in. Here's lateral malleoli, knee, hip, shoulder, ear. It's because you're looking up. If your eyes have gone to its neutral place, I don't think you get there. That's more neutral. You would see your head, it would be forward.
But still, that's straighter than the other.
Yes.
I was looking from the other
Yeah,
side,
and
right?
that's
I mean, or at least it
rotational. I'll
appears
explain
that way, right?
Yeah, I'll explain why that is, because that's going to be, if we can eliminate that, we're going to eliminate a knee problem in the future. Also, I talk about curves. This is called the cervical curve, thoracic kyphosis. Then we should have a lumbar lordosis, and we should have a curve of the butt. It's kind of been extinguished. I'll go back a frame. Gotcha. Well, it's not that much. What you move with becomes round, what you stabilize becomes flat. This is an important concept because the hips are the plane of movement. This is where we do all our movement, picking things up, running, cutting, kicking, all come from the hips. All motions are from the hip. You're starting to flatten through your butt here. That's because you're stabilizing with your butt. So now we have to ask the question, where are you supposed to stabilize? And it's through this plane, it's through the abdomen. So it's not like you're fat, but your abdominal muscles are turning off, and that's why the girth from here to here seems thicker than what should be here. So you're starting to get excessive movement through your lumbar spine. And if you don't already have back problems, you're definitely going to have what feels like tight hamstrings. Because you're not moving from your hips, you're starting to move from your lumbar spine here, like you go to pick things up like this instead of pick things up like this. We need the back muscles to stay shortened and the hips to stay mobile and to be able to open.
Your shirt is also telling us that you slouch a little bit more than you are right now.
Yeah, we call that belling, and your shirt is belling out. So if I normally stand like this, my shirt will adapt. So if I go to stand up straight, my shirt will follow. Does that make sense? Especially on cotton shirts, which this one is, you're going to get belling like that. So it means you don't normally stand up straight. And that's why as an athlete, you have to stand up straight. Oops. Let me get rid of this. What's this? Where'd this come from? Turn out once again. You had to look down. But not quite as bad this time. You're getting the gist of it. Well, still look down. That's a really wide stance because you're going to see that you have to pull it in. So you overestimated what should be just second nature to you. Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting when I have you start balancing. When you balance on your left foot, and there's a reason I put you on your left foot first, here's what's interesting, what you're about to do. Because it goes back to precision of movement, and it also tells me how wide your stance should be. You have to pull your foot in that much. Okay? So this is your resting stance and it's too wide. Here's your athletic stance and you had to close it up. So that's how wide you should be standing normally. So this whole surfer cool stance has got to go because you're pushing your hips forward and your feet are turning out. And that's putting on anybody a lot of stress of that peroneus longus muscle. So this is the width of your stance at any given time. Okay. Then you balance onto your left foot. Great balance. This is great balance, great line. And again, that's translating to your natural athletic ability. You have balance. Lines are all great. It's a little shifted to the left, but your eyes are all focused on the horizon. I have a sneaky feeling you might be left eye dominant, not right. Well, you're right eye dominant, but your left eye is taking in a huge amount of information. And it's taking in balance information, which it should not do. You should be getting that from your hips. So you're shifted a little too far to your left, but your balance is really good. I forgot to do it with his eyes closed, nuts. Here's a balance on your right foot. Here's what's interesting. I let you reset your feet, and they went wide again. There's no reason they should go wide again. And then, to get on your right foot, you do the same exact thing. You see that? You had to pull your feet back together. And then you did one other step, a shortcut, which I call throwing up. So instead of lifting your leg straight up, you had to throw yourself over to one side, then lift your leg up. And you pulled your leg in. So that's 3 steps to do what should have been straight up. Okay? So this, again, a loss of reaction time. Balance looks great. Here your face actually softens, your eyes go level. This hand gets involved again because this is the stressful side. I mean, even though this is the more natural side, you're compensating stress into this hand. Have you ever finished surfing and have your left hand be sore?
No.
You're too young. You'll notice it when you get older. Okay, look at that. That's a really flat medial arch. So we gotta stop that almost immediately. And this is you touching your toes. As you go into a forward fold, we can see that this side humps higher, telling us that everything going on your left leg, which is your leg of stabilization and standing or rest, so you put all the work into this left leg. You'll find you doing this a lot. This side will be tighter, and the reason is, have you ever been to New York?
Into what?
New York City?
Yeah.
Have you ever rode the subway?
Yeah.
So once your hand grabs one side, this becomes a stabilizing arm. So once I'm holding that railing, so here's a range of motion of this shoulder. But this is a range of motion of this shoulder because I'm not holding on to something. Does that make sense? This is your stabilization leg now. You stabilize, put all the weight onto this one so you can walk around basically like a peg leg. So we see that there's a rounding of this spine muscle and that you get you get a rounding of this side and you get an overflexing of this side because it's flexible and this side is more tight. Do you see that? So you've accidentally created a muscular imbalance. Turning you to, and the ironic thing is by the end you end up shifting over the top. So even though it's your tighter side, you end up swooping over to the left, which is, even in this position, in other words, you're looking for a way to rest, even though that's a greater stretch on the hamstring. And that's kind of dangerous because there's a chance of pulling that muscle. Then, coming back up, leaning back, this was really interesting. You opened up your, I made you step forward, but you opened up your stance again. And then when you went to go lean back, you're not that flexible. And you don't have balance going backwards. So that's why I'm saying you know how to control fall forwards, but not backwards. Because that should have been just lean back. And so you had to figure out putting your hands, and it's not because there's anything wrong there. It's called proprioception. That's the ability to get information. Instead of getting it from your back, you got to confirm it with your hands feeling. So that's a loss of athletic information. So when we look at your rotation, so lateral bend. You go heavy on your right leg to do a lateral bend to your left. Just make sure. Yeah, you're heavy on your right leg. And then you put a lot of work into your neck on that one. Do you see it? It's not really happening through your mid-back. When you go this way, uh-oh, do you see the problem? We get a beautiful lateral bend. This is the way it's supposed to be, but you're heavy over your right leg. So once you go dynamic, you're putting a lot of work into that right knee. Okay? Watch what happens in rotation. Rotate, 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 rotate. What leg's carrying the weight?
Left.
Right leg. And then you practically turn around. This leg's pointed forward, and that's okay. That means it's not suffering. But this one gets torqued. Do you see how the right knee is kind of torqued? Okay. And that's amazing how much you turned around. You should play golf.
Surprised.
So amazing in that more flexible than you thought,
For
or
the amount of
because his hip is
inflexibility he has going forward and backwards, this is almost too much rotation.
Yeah.
But
Surprisingly
for
much.
right now, he can use that to his advantage, like kicking. Kicking, he'll be able to snap the ball really hard. Michelle Wee, she's a local girl.
Mhm.
She had a problem. Has a problem. She could take the club head and not only go 360 degrees, she could do 410 degrees. So that means the club head started somewhere over
Right.
here and spun around her body and ended up
Right.
way over here. And that was she could get away with that while she was young and able to do this. This is because he hasn't hit skeletal maturity. Tiger Woods went through the same problem. They could over-rotate because they were using the fact that your bones are young and they're still partly cartilage to over-torque the bone. And so you have almost too much rotation in your upper spine. Not enough. This should have happened at your hips. It's happening at your knees and it's happening at your low back. Okay?
So you're saying he's actually rotating from the bone, not from his muscular.
Correct.
Not from his muscles.
Yeah. And this is where it becomes a little more obvious because this was kind of frightening too. Watch what leg you stay heavy on. You stayed heavy on your right leg. So you're twisting that, and you can see how hard a twist is. It's affecting your foot. This knee is now in poor alignment.
And the
And-
ankle too, right?
Yeah, just everything is painful. But you're able to over-rotate your back that much. That's incredible. But unfortunately, that's coming from your back, your cervical spine, and your knees like crazy. So if you're going to be that flexible, your body's got to tighten something up to protect you. And that's why it's tightening up in the aspect of your leg. We really got to get this rotation out of your hip, which is a very different rotation than what you're doing. And that is it. So, to add this all up, all you have is poor posture and poor mechanics of movement. It's that easy. I give you a lot of information so you can understand. So go ahead and stand up. We're going to correct a few things on your stance. Actually, stand there, and then you can go over.
Do you mind if I keep-
Yeah, the lighting's better.
yeah, great.
Okay.
Stand regular road filter.
First, stand regular, and I want you to notice how much of the kinesio tape it exposes. That's probably the biggest thing.
Right.
You can see it because what he's doing is instead of using the proper line of musculature, using the quads into what's called the tibialis anterior, he's using the adductors into the tibialis posterior. So his feet are turning out too much. So when he's running a little like this. So that means he's not using his butt properly and he's not using his hamstrings properly. So we're going to change that. Feet closer together. Perfect. Now we're going to get the feet parallel. That's going to be the hardest part. Okay, so this foot comes in a little bit more. And here. Next part, you can help out Rebecca. We're going to have you, actually grab this, yeah. We're going to have you bend your knees, and now we're going to turn your knees out. Turn out, turn out, turn out, turn out. Okay, remove your hand for a quick second. Notice how that rebuilds the arches in his feet. We actually need this one go out a little further. There we go. It elevates the arches in his feet. Keep your knees where they are and slightly straighten your legs. It's going to create a lot of torque in your leg. Stop right there. Stick your butt out. Keep turning your knees out. Now lift tall through your abdomen. Shoulder blades down and back. Okay, you make sure the knees stay where they are. Head up. Lift up tall, suck in your tongue. This has just become your all the time stance. It feels weird. It's going to cost you a lot of energy.
Make sure you breathe.
In the human body, the calorie is a monetary unit. So that means we spend money, our money in the body is calorie. So this is going to cost you a lot of calories. You can feel it. Because you're like, what the hell? You want me to stand like this? I feel like I'm inside out. But this is going to make you turn on your quads, which are on, but more importantly, it's going to turn on your butt and your abs. And that's the sign of a great athlete. But your feet are parallel, and feel how different that stance is. It's going to feel very weird. You feel yourself starting to shake? That's because it's costing you. Because your other stance is a breakdown posture. So since your dad is filming, and you may review this, who's the captain of the team right now? And I'm just going based on body language. Who's in charge?
Red shirt.
Exactly. But if we stand out, suddenly we become equals. This is a sign of leadership. One of the greatest things you can give on a team is leadership. This is a leadership posture. This is not. We would not follow a president that stood like this. We may believe he's smart, but we would not follow him. So a captain looks like this. Now we're going to have you put more weight over your toes. And do you feel yourself starting to get hot and sweaty?
Yeah.
Because this is costing you energy. This is the number one thing we got to get back on. Okay? Stay like this. Balance on your left foot. Take your right foot off the ground. You're going to find out how hard it is. Okay, and you bring it up naturally. Don't bring it up to the side. There you go. Hold that line. Look straight ahead. Smile up. No more frowning, because it makes me believe you hate soccer. Okay, balance on the other foot. Keep your foot parallel. Keep that same turned out energy. Ooh, and you got to figure out how to bring your knee straight forward instead of out to the side, which is going to take you a while to learn. Lift up, calves tight, there. Straighten out that big toe. It's like, yeah, there you go. Relax your hands. Relax that right hand. There you go. That's it. That is what it's going to feel like for you to walk around. Back on the 2 feet, get that stance back.
Do I always have to have like with my knees like out weird?
For now, because what you've done is you've overstretched this, that we now have to bring that out. Okay? Okay, turn to your left. 2 steps. You only get 2 steps. Don't look down. 2. Good. Oh, but you have to be in that. Do it again. Turn to the right. Nope. Oh, just got worse. 2 steps both directions. 2 steps out, line it up, energy. Pop it back into shape when you turn to the right. Turn to left. Don't curl the toes under. There you go. Relax your hands. Chest out. So this is the curves that you should have. Do you see how much curves you have? Curves means springs. Springs means athletic. When we see that lumbar curve flatten out like his was, he's gonna put it to his back. Okay, turn to the right. 2 steps. 1, 2. Beautiful. To the left. 1, 2. To the right. 1, 2. Good. This is what it's going to take. As boring as this is, you have to keep this consistent. Okay? Good. Go on your back. On the floor. This part you don't have to film. It's not as exciting. How much pain are you in now? I'm assuming a lot because you're wearing the tape.
Not that much. Kind of from my back now.
Okay, let's stretch on.
Okay.
We're going to stretch you. I want you to feel what a good stretch feels like. Yeah, we'll do that too.
Now I can. You go to put out? I had to make one of those stools.
What? Oh, for shop?
That little stool, yeah.
Straight leg. All right, Mr. Athlete, this should be at 90 degrees to your body.
This is tight.
This is at 45 degrees, and you
Very
can't,
tight.
keep this leg straight. Smile up, head straight, shoulder blades down and back. Get those shoulders down and back. Head in the center. Smile up. The reason we smile, and the reason why I tell you to smile, is the fastest way to the neocortical brain, and that's a part of your brain that grows and learns, is through a smile, because it puts you in the parasympathetic mode instead of sympathetic fight or flight. Breathe. So what we're stretching out is your calf muscle. Can you feel it? And you should feel like it's tearing behind your knee. Do you feel that? That's because your calf is too tight. Not your hamstring, but your calf. And when the calf gets tight, you can't stand up straight. When you can't stand up straight, you lose your athletic balance. Vicious circle. Smile up. 10 more seconds.
Starting.
Now. 10. Mississippi. 9. Mississippi. What is that?
What is what?
That green thing with one eye.
Oh, I don't know. That's my brother made that.
Oh. I lost count. 10. Mississippi. 9. 8. 7. 6. 5. Head straight. Head straight. Stop looking like you're having nightmares. 5. 4. 3. 2. And 1. Switch it. We call that tightness.
Right leg.
Oh, it's a matching set. Notice you're starting to sweat. Well, it's partially pain, but it's also, that's how much muscle energy you're wasting. So you're fast. Like I saw you on the field, you're crazy fast. You can be so much faster. Oh, that is if you like playing soccer. You could be a way better surfer too. Your stance is too wide. Turn that knee out. Not, I want him to do it. Yes. Because now we're stretching out the.
He sweat.
Yeah, a lot of sweat. Shin sweat. Oh, it's actually kind of flexible this way. That's from surfing though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been stretching this a lot for my back.
Yeah. But we're gonna
Not
stretch
like we're
it
gonna
correctly.
stretch it. Okay, stick out your butt. So stick it out into the floor.
Yeah, so really stick out your butt. Like someone's standing behind you and you're saying, kick my butt.
Smile for the camera. Breathe.
That's it. Keep smiling.
He's too darn strong for
Right.
the amount of inflex. He's got the inflexibility of a 40-year-old. Yeah.
Feel it?
Yeah.
Yeah or yes?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
This is
Right.
without thinking, I know.